Hour 2 Overdrive continues, brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Bryan Hayes, Dave Feschuk of the Toronto Star. TSN 1050 up on TSN 4. Big hour. Confirming tonight later this hour. And Steve Phillips will join us here, our MLB analyst. Jays Dodgers tonight. Jays with a big one last night. That was a big game. They needed that, right? You got to have that after you go up in the eighth. They're up 3-2. They blow it in the bottom of the inning. It goes to extra innings. And Dalton Varsho, I'll give him credit because, he's really struggled this year. He got caught basically stealing. He was trying to steal a base. He jumped too early last night. That was an awful, fundamental play by him. Or lack of fundamentals last night by Varsho. But you pick up a win in L.A., and I think, Barrios, it wasn't the cream of the crop for him, but he gives you 5 innings, 2 earned. He got out of a jam early in that game. For the most part, only give up 1 run in the first inning. That's a pretty good outing. That's a pretty good outing. Walked probably too many guys, more than he'd certainly like last night. But the Dodgers worked the count as good as any team in baseball. Mm-hmm. And it's not going to be, picture perfect every single time out. But I thought that was a sign of Barrios in 2023 battling. Where if that start happens last year, I think he gets lit up and he's out in the second or third inning.
That's a great comparison. I think you're right. He has evolved. He's definitely progressed. And it doesn't hurt that unlike, say, Kevin Gausman, he gets a little bit of run support when it's not going perfectly for him, and they escape with a win. So, huge start to a West Coast swing there.
Big time. And I think the story in the city today and among Jays fans, it appears to be revolving around George Springer. George is really taking a lot of heat, and quite frankly, it's deserved.
Oh, yeah.
Right? He's got 1 hit in his last 5 games. He was 0 for 6 last night. 1 hit in his last 5 games. And really, post-All-Star break, he was struggling. He had an awful start to the year. Then he got it together. He had about a 6-week run there, probably middle of May through June, and now it's really fallen off. And I think the numbers would suggest he's getting on base well below his career average. He's getting on base at a 327 clip. His career average is 355. He's got an OPS plus of 104. Basically, he's an average hitter. That's effectively what that stat is telling you. His numbers and what he's done recently would suggest to me he should move out of the leadoff role. Yeah. But because of who he is, because of his history there, because of how great he's been as a leadoff hitter throughout his career, the amount of money, the amount of commitment, he's already moved from center field to right field. I don't think this feels like a classic baseball play. I could be wrong, but I think they'll let him ride this out.
Oh, no doubt.
I think they'll let him ride this out.
You got to ride it out because it's like we talked about. It's not about what this team is right now, because right now, as Atkins has said, they have not been clicking on all cylinders. When the top of the lineup has been good, the bottom lineup has been not so good. When certain guys are on base, other guys haven't knocked them in. But they've got to keep striving for the idea that if these guys can all click at once or close to click at once, this is one of the most dangerous lineups in baseball. And to just sort of punt on George Springer, I mean, you'd have to have a lot of confidence that he'd be able to weather that, right. and B, he'd be able to bounce back from it.
Yeah, listen, in baseball with veteran guys, it's a very delicate conversation.
It is. It's
a very delicate conversation. He identifies as a leadoff hitter. He takes pride in that. He won a World Series MVP doing it. He came over here. He signed that monster deal that really started the new era of. That was basically the Shapiro and Atkins, stake in the ground. All right, Anthopoulos is gone. We're moving in a different direction between Ryu and Springer, and Springer even more so because of where he came from and being a winner.
World Series MVP.
Yeah, exactly, and just his personality, playing center field, hitting leadoff. It's a very delicate conversation to move him out.
It is.
And if you're going to move him out of the leadoff spot, I don't think you're moving him to the second or third spot in the lineup.
Probably not.
Was he going to hit 7th, hit 8th?
That's potentially true, yeah.
That's a massive confidence blunder.
Wow. And it's a bit like the conversation we had at points last season about Bo Bichette not being a shortstop, right? He'd be better suited at second base. And maybe he would. And maybe he still would be. But he identifies as a shortstop.
Right.
He sort of gets a lot of his swagger and his ability to go out there every day from the fact that he's been a shortstop his entire life. and wants to be a shortstop, does not want to play second base. And so as much as it might be better for the team to move him to second base in the long run, it also might be worse for the team if you lose this guy, lose his, put a dent in his confidence and take all the ancillary hits that come with the risk of moving a guy to somewhere he doesn't want to be. And I think it's exactly the same with Springer in the leadoff spot.
Yeah. And I think it's more likely they give him a night off and, adjust the lineup accordingly because he won't be available, than
right.
take him out of the leadoff.
Which is what they did with Bichette last night, although
exactly.
he did pinch hit. But he's, speaking of not playing well these last 5 games, Bichette is now 0 for his last 5 games, right? Not going particularly well for him. So.
No, Bo, I saw someone was sending me stats the other day about what he's been doing the last, 30-plus games.
Yeah, even before the All-Star break.
Yeah, he's striking out a lot. He's not walking out a lot, or he's not walking a lot. It's always with him, it's been adjustments and counter adjustments. That's kind of been the story of his career the last couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
Like last year, remember early on, he really, really struggled. And then he had that September that was outrageous.
Yeah.
He was as productive as anyone we've really seen in a Blue Jays uniform over the course of a month, and he completely redeemed himself. And then he starts this year, the first couple of months, and he was electric, leading the league in hits and putting up big numbers in terms of OPS and home runs. And there was chatter, is this a guy that could be a 30 and 30 guy if he gets moving on the bases? And now he's striking out a ton. He's not walking, and he's not hitting.
Yeah. Well, he's still leading. A real struggle. To be fair, he is still leading the AL in hits.
Yeah.
Right? So he's
That's
built
how
up.
much of a lead he had.
You're right.
That's how good he was hitting.
That is how good he was hitting. He's still having a decent year. And look, these blips happen over a long season, right?
And you got to adjust again, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like if they're going to pitch you whichever way they're pitching them, okay, you got to prepare for that. You got to force them to throw you something you want to hit and something you're going to hit. Here's Steve Phillips, our TSN MLB analyst, joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline. Steve, we're just talking about this George Springer conundrum where, Springer is really, really struggling. He's got 1 hit in his last 6 games. He's not getting on base a lot, if at all. But he identifies as a leadoff hitter. He's done it his whole career. That's why they signed him. It's what he did in the World Series back in the day. How delicate is that conversation within the organization, the idea of even contemplating the idea of moving him out of the leadoff role?
Yeah, I don't have a problem doing it. I mean, I really don't. I would not have a problem having a conversation. I wouldn't have the problem actually making the move. I remember when David Price was with the Blue Jays that period of time, he had a sticker in his locker, a Post-it note in his locker. And it was something that Joe Madden used to say all the time. And it was, if you don't like it, play better. And so, the idea, so the idea that it might disrupt them, make them unhappy, make them uncomfortable, okay. Well, being comfortable is not, getting the results that you want. And so I really don't have a problem with doing that. And so I don't think that it, look, George Springer's been around the game a long time. He understands the importance of a leadoff man getting on base. And if he's not getting on base, then it's not really the right thing for the team to leave him in the leadoff spot. So I personally would actually be encouraging John Snyder to be willing to change the lineup. That if Whit Merrifield's a better leadoff man right now, then put him up there. This isn't about feelings, and Springer knows that. It's about winning games. And what's the best way to win games right now? And, I had a player one time, and I might have told you guys this story. I had a player one time who I got a phone call from his mom when I was Mets general manager. I got a call, and my assistant said, hey, so-and-so's mom's on the phone. And I'm like, okay. And so mom got on the phone and said, my son, I won't say the name of the player, but my son, he's not hitting, but in order for him to hit, he's got to be playing regularly. And I said to her, I said, well, this is the major leagues, and, that's just not how it works, that it's about production that keeps you in the lineup. And, my encouragement, and I would hope your encouragement to your son would be, hey, when you get your opportunity, take advantage of it. And if you do, you're going to get in the lineup the next day, too. And if you do it again, you're going to get in the lineup the next day, too. But, that you've just got to do everything you can when you're not playing to be ready that when you do play to produce. So, I got off the phone, excuse me, and I buzzed my executive assistant, and I said, put the player on waivers right now. I'm not going to have a 26-year-old man whose mom's calling the general manager to say that he should be playing more. I was like, what is going on here? But George Springer knows. Like, he knows this is about production. There aren't scholarships in baseball. This is about winning. And if he's not doing everything that he can to help the team win, he understands that he might have to move down in the lineup, and it makes him mad. Okay, get going. Pick it up a little bit. Start getting on base more. Start hitting better. So I would not have a hesitation to do it at all.
So what do you make of the sort of the foibles of a long season, Steve? When you got a guy like Bichette, we were just talking about him before you came on, how he was essentially their first half MVP in a lot of ways, and last 30 games or so, and certainly since the All-Star break, has not been the same hitter, striking out a lot more. He's 0 for his last 5 games. They sat him down last night in L.A., even though he did come in to pinch hit. Is some of this just about load management and taking the edge off the grind, or is it deeper than that with Bichette?
Yeah, I think, for every player, there are peaks and valleys. I mean, what we're talking about for Springer has been a long run of a valley for him. For Bichette, he's been pretty productive for most of the season. And, we saw him at times be streaky. Those numbers at the end of the year last year were very good, but his late August, early September were like world beater numbers. He was out of his mind with what he was doing. And so this is just the rigors of, what goes up must come down, and what is down does come up in baseball. And that, you have this term statistically called regression toward the mean. And so, at some point, guys who are playing well above average are going to fall back a little bit. But I'm not worried about if Bo Bichette is the Blue Jays' biggest problem, that they're in a really good spot. And now it's not their biggest problem, but if it is, so I'm not worried about him at all.
Well, it's interesting how they line up right now because, Springer is struggling. That's a guy making a lot of money sitting at the top of your lineup. Bichette struggling recently, a guy who you rely on heavily. He's going to hit second in the lineup. Vladdy, we know, has had a relatively inconsistent year, coming around a lot recently. Yet these veteran guys, basically on 1 year, make it or break it deals coming over from long-term stays in Tampa, be it Kiermaier, Whit Merrifield in Kansas City, Brandon Belt in San Francisco. These guys have been huge, Steve. And I don't know if it's coming up enough. I'm sure Ross Atkins is probably peacocking around the office down there saying, hey, you look at what my boys are doing here? Like, Merrifield had 4 hits last night. Belt's been outstanding for them. Kiermaier had another 2 hits. Those are things that have to break for you, though, don't they? Like, over the course of a season, you take some flyers, and Kiermaier they signed, Belt they signed, Merrifield they acquired last year at the deadline. But without those 3 guys, who knows where this team is at right now?
Yeah, there's no question about that. And, the back of the baseball card matters. Remember, Brandon Belt did get off to a little bit of a slow start.
Yes, he did.
But veteran players tend to, again, what goes down must come up. And especially if you're a veteran guy who's got a historically been a good hitter, sooner or later you're going to bounce back and get back on track again. And we've seen that with some of those guys. Whit Merrifield's been huge for them recently. 4 hits in the game yesterday. He's up to like 299 right now. And he's been a guy that last year did not have his best season, but did bounce back this year. And so you're right. The veterans have been really good. And, to a degree, this front office, when it comes to free agent signing, for the most part, have done a pretty good job. You think about the one season with Simeon and Robbie Ray and what those 2 guys did.
Yep.
In the one seasons, those were absolutely phenomenal. You got a Cy Young Award winner, a near MVP, and so some of the productions there. Not Kikuchi, you can make a case, has been a bit up and down, but that's always been what he's gotten done. And when Ryu's healthy, he's pitched pretty well. So, look, this is a team that has the talent to win a World Series. They really do. They've just got to all get rowing in the same direction. The one part about being a little bit cold right now, it does mean that, they're going to be due for a hot streak, and it may come at just the right time in August and September to get them going. And so, it's not the worst thing in the world that this is where the lull is happening, because it does mean that the hot streak's on the way.
With Steve Phillips, our Jays and MLB analyst, and with the win last night, the Jays are now 56 and 45, and yet Jeff Passan of ESPN wrote about this earlier today. I'm going to read this quickly. One of the excerpts of the piece he's posted up on ESPN.com. Despite currently holding the final wildcard spot, Toronto hasn't done enough to convince ownership to open the coffers, leaving the Blue Jays precisely where they've been all season, the muddled middle. That said, when asked where Ohtani could wind up if he's moved, 3 of the most popular answers from executives are Baltimore, Tampa, and Toronto. He goes on to write, the Blue Jays are a longer shot due to a thinner farm system. But what do you make of that report from Passan?
Yeah, I don't look at it the same way. I don't, he may have asked around, people may have said Toronto, but I don't. Remember, Mark Shapiro, when he came in, one of the things he did was the way it was portrayed was that literally the word scolded was used when he talked to Alex Anthopoulos about giving up all the prospects that he had to go get David Price and Tulowitzki and those guys at the deadline that year. And so it doesn't feel like a Mark Shapiro type move at all for me. And, especially as a rental player, especially when, if you're going to sign Bichette and Guerrero for the long term, you're going to need young players to be able to break in and play around them because it's what you're going to be able to afford. So I don't know. It doesn't feel to me like that's the right fit. I don't know whether it's a coffers thing. Their payroll is over $200 million this year. It's not like they're not spending some money in Toronto. And so, the issue there is not that they have not spent enough. It's that some of their expected really good players are playing pretty good, pretty well, but not like what everybody thought is superstars. And so, there's enough here. They just got to get this core of players to get going. And you can add a guy or two, but in the end, it's going to come down to are Bichette and Vlad Guerrero and George Springer going to lead this thing offensively, and then what happens after that with the pitching staff and what direction they're going to go. I'm doing a hit tonight for, you'll see it on SportsCenter. They asked me about Ohtani, and I said I don't see Ohtani being a Blue Jay move at all. I really don't. Mm-hmm. But what I do, one bold move I could see was they've been in on Justin Verlander each of the last couple times he's been a free agent. He's got the rest of this year and next year. And where his numbers don't look great, his last 5 starts, he looks like Verlander again. That would be a move that I would add him, put him in the front of the rotation. I'm not counting on Manoah. I'm not counting on Ryu coming back and being great. Give me a guy that's been there. Give me last year's Cy Young Award winner. And it might not take a lot to get him if you're going to take the money. And again, that's if the Mets decide they want to trade him. But that's the direction I might look to go. And then I would probably add a platoon right-handed bat to go with Varsho in the outfield. Whether that's Tommy Pham or Mark Canha or Brandon Drury or somebody like that. But I don't see, and you might fortify the pen a little bit more, but I don't see Ohtani really being in the mix there.
So much of this comes down to, Steve, what you just pointed out, like if the Mets decide to liquidate him, if the Angels decide to trade Ohtani. You've been in those high-level meetings with ownership at moments like this, I'm sure. What do you think is going on in the offices of the L.A. Angels when they're 4.5 back right now of that final wild card spot? They got the best player on the planet, maybe at both hitting and pitching, on their books for 1 year, and then you're done. What do you think is going through? What are the machinations they're going through? And in a week and 43 minutes from now, when the deadline hits, what do you think is going to happen?
Yeah, so I think that they're talking about trading Ohtani to a number of different teams, and they're taking offers, and they're letting teams say, well, what are you willing to do, and seeing how far they're willing to go. But I think they're going to keep negotiating as though they're going to trade them, and they'll get it lined up to where they can play each other against each other team, and that if they decide to trade them, then they can go. What they can't do, they can't wait till next Sunday to decide, okay, now we decided we're going to trade them, and then start that process. It's going to be too deep a process, too complicated, too many moving parts, too many layers, too much playing this team against that team, and the number of prospects you're going to need to bring in. Because really, he's going to be the best pitcher and the best hitter available in the market. That's the reality is he's the best of both. And so you're going to get 3 blue-chip players for him, the pitcher, 3 blue-chip players for Ohtani, the hitter, and you're going to really wipe out somebody's farm system with this deal. Now, I don't know whether the Orioles would be willing to do that. The Rays would be willing to do that. I don't know who is. The Dodgers maybe, but then we're hearing reports that Artie Moreno doesn't want to trade him to if they trade him to any competitors, including the Dodgers. So if they're sharing the same town, he doesn't want to trade him there. If the American League West, he doesn't want to trade him there. And I'm thinking, who cares? Like, he's going to be a free agent at the end of the year. What difference does it make? If you're not going to the playoffs, then steal away all of your closest competition best players. Let them rent them for 2 months, and then see if they sign them. Because, look, you may not want to trade him to the Dodgers, but it doesn't mean they can't sign him in the offseason. He's going to end up there. Get the best players you can from whoever wants to give them to you and move on. I think he's going to get traded. I do. I think it would be baseball malpractice for the Angels not to trade him. And so it's incumbent upon the baseball department to get Artie Moreno, the owner, to understand this isn't the best interest of the team. And what we want to do is we want to win the most games for the longest period of time possible. That's your goal as a general manager. Yeah, you want to make the playoffs. You want to win when you get there. But you want to win the most games for as long as you possibly can. And the best way to do that for the Angels right now is to capitalize on Ohtani and bring back the biggest return we've ever seen in a trade deadline deal.
Well, we got a week left, Steve, to figure out exactly how that plays out. I'm with you. I think it should happen. I certainly hope it happens. But we likely won't find out in the next day or two. We'll see by later in the week. Thank you for doing this, pal. We'll do it again soon.
You got it, guys. My pleasure.
Steve Phillips, our TSN MLB analyst, joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline. Build your next dream Toyota at Maple Toyota, and check out Maple Toyota's pre-owned inventory arriving daily. It's time to Toyota. Visit mapletoyota.com. I think the Ohtani case study is going to be a fascinating one. If he gets flipped, the likelihood of that team winning the World Series is still a small percentage because only one team can win. Right. And if there's still 12, let's say there's 10 teams in the league that feel like they are good enough to win a World Series, maybe it's less than that. But let's say there's 8 teams that really feel that they can win, and one of them gets them. Okay, you're still looking at a small percentage.
You're right.
About 12 to 15% chance, and that they're going to win, and that he's going to play a factor in that. So the odds would still be in the favor of the GMs that don't have the stomach to pay the price. That they'll watch him go to a different team. That team will lose, and they'll say, "See, that's why you don't do it."
Right.
But if he goes to a team and that wins, then I'm sorry, you better come out and explain yourself immediately, right? Like if he shows up and he hits 400 in the fall, and he pitches Game 1 and Game 4 and Game 7 of the championship series and the World Series, he comes out of the bullpen on short rest, and he's doing it all. World Series MVP, wins it.
Yeah.
Any GM that's like, well, we couldn't do it because that would be stupid, immediately you're the stupid one.
Right.
You're the one that didn't have the stones to do what that GM did, and it paid off beautifully.
That's
and I hope that happens.
And that's why, look, I still think it's intriguing that Jeff Passan threw out the Jays in his top 3 most popular answers from MLB executives on where Ohtani might end up. Because as much as I agree with Steve about the previous character of this regime with Shapiro and Atkins having allegedly scolded Alex Anthopoulos for trading all those prospects in that 2015-2016 rush to the playoffs, this ain't David Price, man. This ain't Troy Tulowitzki. This guy is the unicorn. This guy, as Steve says, he's not just the best pitcher on the market, he's the best hitter. And beyond all that, he's not just the best baseball player, he's the most marketable athlete on the planet right now. And I think that changes everything for a franchise that just invested big in their park, that needs could use a marquee figure in their presence. Not that Vladdy's not marquee, not that Bo's not marquee, but this guy's a different level of marquee.
Yeah, there's no equivalent of marquee status to that of Ohtani right now.
I just don't think previous scenarios apply here because this guy is just totally different.
He is different. He's changed the game. He's changed the way we perceive what a superstar could be because he's doing things we've just never seen before.
Yeah.
I also think there could be some gamesmanship within the game, the rumor mill game, because it's not like it's not. I don't think it's a coincidence. Tampa, Baltimore, Toronto, like the 3 teams in the same division, right, fighting to push the Yankees back. And I wonder if it's the Angels leaking, saying, I got to get these teams eating their own.
Well, for sure. And let's not forget,
snap the Yankees out of it. Hey, these are the 3 teams going for it. You're going to let him come to your division and not be in New York?
Right. And we know how executives like to play with the insiders, right? As much as the insiders are plugged in, it was only about a week ago that Buster Olney, who's as plugged in as anybody, was sitting here saying it's Yankees, Yankees, Yankees as the favorite to get Ohtani, right?
Right.
And so there's a lot of stuff going on that we don't know, because I just feel like this is a frenzy like we've never seen before, because this is a player that has never existed until this guy existed.
Yeah, exactly. That's probably the best way to put it. All right, confirm and deny coming up. We'll get into a number of things, including where the Jays are at, where the Bruins are at now that Patrice Bergeron has retired, and Messi doing what he's doing in MLS. There's a lot of different things to get into. Confirm and deny coming up next.
I can neither confirm or deny that this is in fact a segment.
Austin trades Andrew Raycroft to Toronto in exchange for the rights to Tuukka Rask.
It's been my honor and a privilege to serve as the general manager of the Toronto Maple Leafs Hockey Club.
It's time for Confirm or Deny.
Do you regret giving all those gentlemen the no trades or no movement clauses?
I can neither confirm or deny that.
I can't confirm or deny.
All right, confirm or deny, brought to you by Don Valley North Lexus. Right now, lease the 2023 IS 300 premium package from just $288 bi-weekly for 24 months. Visit DonValleyNorthLexus.com for all the details. Every fifth week, I just can't get through that intro. It's so stupid. It's so ridiculous. It's about a GM from 20 years ago.
Yep.
And yet, it's a staple, right? It's a staple, and we love it. All right.
Legendary moment in Toronto sports history.
Absolutely. Without question. Cannot confirm and deny. Statements are made. We go around the table. We confirm them or we deny them. Here is the ultimate hypothetical. We started the show talking about LeBron and his tweet last night about the amount of money that's being thrown around, Saudi Arabia, and them trying to bring in Kylian Mbappe, and they're already bringing in other big soccer names, and they've been bringing in big golf names. I'm not sure they have a professional basketball league. I know they could create one overnight if they wanted to. So confirm or deny, LeBron James would be the Saudis' top American sports priority. They could get one American athlete, they'd pick LeBron.
Yeah, I'm going to deny that, mostly because, they've been involved in a lot of sports. They've been throwing their money around golf and soccer and Formula One and, all kinds of other things. But basketball has not really been their thing. They do have a league. I looked it up after we talked about it in the opening segment, but It's not like they're bringing in big names. Now, heck, that can change in 5 minutes if they decide, you know what, let's build a league. And they probably could afford LeBron and 10 of LeBron's best buddies to come over and start a bunch of teams if they so chose.
If they wanted to.
Yeah.
If they wanted to. That's why I will confirm it, because I think everything they've been doing, it's not about wins and losses.
No.
Right? And LeBron is out of his prime. LeBron's not the guy you would choose in the NBA right now to build your roster around. But that's never been what this has been about anyway. Even with Kylian Mbappe being in his prime and arguably the best, football star in the world, they don't care really if he wins or loses.
No.
It doesn't matter. What matters is they got him.
They got him.
They stole him. They took him, and the noise that came with him. And there is not a noisier American athlete than LeBron James.
That's true.
He is the noisiest, and he's on Twitter. He's on Instagram. Everything he does. And in LeBron, and I believe it's 100% manufactured, and he's got the PR team around him. When it's too quiet around LeBron, he makes sure to make it loud again.
Oh, always.
Right? Case in point, him announcing that he's not retiring. As if that was necessary. Exactly, at the ESPYs. And tweets like the one last night where he's goofing around, but that's his way of being like, include me in this conversation. What do you think I'm worth? I want to know this. And I think that would be right up their alley, because I think it's just all about noise. It's all about saying, we took your guy, and he's here now. And LeBron, I think, would epitomize that. I do.
No doubt.
Confirm or deny, Lionel Messi playing at BMO Field would be your number one sports ticket in Toronto.
For this year, you know what? I'm going to confirm it.
Okay.
I'm going to confirm it. It's a packed field. You've got Friday night, right? Friday night might be.
Exactly. Ohtani's rolling through.
Friday night actually might beat that one. I'm sort of, as much as I'm confirming, Messi is, on 1-2 for the greatest player in the history of the biggest sport in the world. So I'm going to say right now he stands above Ohtani.
Yeah.
As much as Ohtani is as great as Ohtani is. So I will say, to see you, just to be able to say, I saw Messi in person, that's something you're going to want to tell your grandkids, right? Like, that's something you're going to want to say in your sporting fan life. So outside of Ohtani, LeBron's kind of past his prime. Like, what are the other options to see one of the all-time greats in Toronto this year? I got to say Messi's it.
Yeah, I would confirm it as well, because of the fact that I think he's probably only coming up here once. Too,
Potentially.
right? Like Ohtani's been to town, he will continue to come to town. Even if he goes to the National League, there's a good chance he's going to play at the Rogers Center again at some point in his career. Maybe Messi plays 3, 4, 5 years. Maybe he goes everywhere and plays the whole circuit. I find that hard to believe. I'm not sure he's here for that long. Even if he is, I'm not sure he plays every game. I'm not sure he travels to every stadium. So I would confirm it because of the uniqueness of seeing Messi live. Ohtani being another one. I think Victor Wembanyama is up there like as a rookie. I want to see him. Like I really want to see that kid. I want to see Connor Bedard when he rolls through town for the first time. But those guys are likely to play here 15, 20 times in their career. Exactly. Where Messi, it's just so unique. And I think that speaks to how great he is. Like, TFC is horrible.
Yes.
They are horrendous. There's no reason to watch Toronto FC right now unless you're a diehard, right? And obviously there are a number of them.
Oh, they got a bunch of those, yeah.
Yeah, they got a lot of them. And listen, beautiful weather. You go down. It's an incredible stadium. It's a great viewing experience. But based on what they are supplying on the pitch, it's not a great sales pitch right now.
No.
But Messi changes everything. Messi could be playing 11 guys off the street, and it would still be charged a decent penny, and you probably pay it.
And he's still delivering. Like, his debut, he comes in and, beautiful free kick to win it.
Yep, incredible. As Joe from the Bridge just pointed out, he just posted this on TSN. Joe Pompliano tweeting out that Apple TV is giving Messi a cut of the streaming revenue, which we're aware of, and the subscriptions. And now Messi's promoting this directly to his Instagram account. I guess the direct sign-up link to his 480 million Instagram followers. And Joe is projecting that he's going to make a fortune off this. I would suggest that's probably accurate. But this is also kind of cutting edge in terms of maybe how leagues operate in the future. Now, Messi's so much bigger than the league, bigger than the sport, that they're going to bend the rules for him. The average player isn't going to get access to this. But what's next? And where is this going to go in terms of players saying, well, if you give me a piece of this pie, I'll invest even more in selling it for you.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know.
Well, that's it. That's just it, right? Like the MLS kind of has that freedom within their system right now, where the designated players can essentially get an unfettered amount of money, which of course makes guys in other leagues go, wow, that'd be nice to be a star in that league.
Interesting.
Yeah,
pretty interesting. All right, confirmed tonight, Joseph Wall, who we believe will be a part of the goaltending tandem in Toronto this year.
Better be.
It sounds as if it's going to be Wall and Samsonov.
Right.
Confirmed tonight, Joseph Wall can have the biggest impact on this upcoming season of all the new Maple Leafs. So that would include Bertuzzi, Domi, Reeves, Klingberg. I think you can include Nyes in that, even though he played. Confirmed tonight, Joseph Wall can have the biggest impact on the new Maple Leafs this season.
I would confirm that 100%, because as a goaltender, especially on a team where they just gave their number one guy a $3.55 million one-year deal, and that guy only played 40 games last year and wasn't available at crunch time in the second round when you were up against the Florida Panthers, guess what? There's opportunity there. Samsonov is nobody's Iron Man. And so for Joseph Wall, like, who knows how many games this guy could play? He could play, depending on the health of Samsonov and the availability or existence of other options for the Maple Leafs, which right now they don't appear to have. There could be a lot riding on Joseph Wall's shoulders. And conversely, there could be a lot of opportunity there to shine as a real NHL goalie, which he showed flashes of in the playoffs.
Right. Yeah. No, I'm confirming it as well because of the nature of the position. And I think it's going to get a lot of pub here. I think it's been talked about a lot. I think it's been acknowledged that the Leafs have done really a terrible job for the better part of 30 years drafting and developing their own goalies.
Yeah.
They've been chasing goalies. And we've seen young stars come up, forwards, centers, wingers, defensemen. We have not seen a goalie that you could attach yourself to it. I'm not putting that pressure on Wall yet, and I'm not even putting that expectation on him. This is not the guy that people are suggesting is going to be the next Carey Price.
Right. Nobody's counting on it.
No, you're not.
No.
But if it happens in some capacity, if he ends up playing 30 games, if he blows past Samsonov, which is not out of the realm of possibility.
Not even close.
Right? Yeah, like Samsonov is not Price in his prime. He's not Vasilevsky. He's not Shesterkin. He's not guaranteed anything. The Leafs coming to the table with an offer of $2.4 million would suggest, they're okay with Samsonov. They don't love Samsonov. Right?
No, they didn't
sign him long term.
Look, I mean, I think Kyle Dubas might have made him a long-term commitment, but I really give Brad Treliving a lot of credit for not doing that.
Right, exactly. And that speaks to a new set of eyes.
Yep.
And that's a very good point. I wonder what Dubas would have done.
Oh, yeah.
Would he have gone to arbitration?
4 years.
Or would he have locked him in and just said, that's my guy? Because I brought him in and he had a good year.
Well, yeah, because guess what? He saved me from my terrible decision on Matt Murray.
Right.
So I'm going to reward him for that alone if I'm Kyle Dubas.
Very well could have happened.
Yeah.
Like, would not have surprised me.
Oh, it was a lock. Let's face it. We know Kyle Dubas.
Yes.
We've seen him operate long enough to know that was a lock.
He probably would have signed him to a long-term deal. I don't think it would have been crazy, but a 3 or 4 year deal at $4+ million for sure.
More than necessary, in my view,
Yep.
at a position where it's like a lottery.
I agree.
You're just spinning it, man. You have no idea how these guys are going to perform. You don't have any idea how they're going to weather the rigors of an 82-game schedule. This guy played 40 games. That was a career high for Samsonov. So let's not pretend we know he's going to be a 60-game horse next year. If he was a 60-game horse next year, I would say that is like striking the lottery. Like that's probably not going to happen.
Huge win. I think it's very unlikely.
Yeah.
Based on staying healthy and based on playing well enough.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's another part of it. To go 60+ starts, that means your coach doesn't even flinch. Mm-hmm. It's just you're up. Like, you're our guy. There's no competition. There's no concern.
Babcock and Freddie Anderson.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You can have 5 awful starts in a row. You're starting the 6th. Like, it doesn't matter. We believe in you. Samsonov is not there. And I find it hard to believe he'll get there. It's possible. And if he does, guess what? It's even more value. For $3.55 million, you get a true bona fide stud who's going to start a ton of games and prove he can be that guy, then the Leafs are going to get a lot of value on that contract.
And then he may leave you in free agency. But
and then he very well could price himself out.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep, and that's where, again, you're going to need Joseph Wall. Confirmed tonight, Bo Bichette is currently a bigger concern at the plate than Vladdy Guerrero Jr. for the Jays.
Well, look, in the here and now, let's just say this week, I'll confirm that. He's been a bigger concern. To the point where they sat him down last night to give him a little rest, even though they brought him in to pinch hit. I believe he's 0 for his last 5 games. Has not been the same player. You pointed out some of the stats, Hayes, where he's striking out a lot more. Mm-hmm. He's not hitting, as much as he was, even though he still is leading the American League in hits. Still on track to do that for a 3rd straight year. But yeah, look, I think he's been a bigger concern of late. Maybe since the All-Star break, maybe going back a little farther. Mm-hmm. And it is concerning, but it's, as Steve Phillips pointed out, you got to expect some valleys in a season with a lot of hills.
Right. And that's why I'm still going to deny it. Like, on a micro level, as you just pointed out, which is fair, going into a game tonight, assuming Bichette is reinserted, which he will be, you're looking at it saying, okay, Vladdy's been coming around. He had a big RBI last night, still struck out 3 times. And Vladdy's been better, but relatively speaking to what you would expect, it's still not quite there. And yes, Bichette's in a valley, and it's a valley that runs relatively deep in terms of time here. Like, we're talking 30, 40 games here where you're starting to see it's a bit of a struggle. But collectively over the course of the season, the guy has been he's been great.
He has.
He's been great. I still think
he's the best guy.
Absolutely. I still think he's got moxie at the plate, confidence at the plate. I think he's got to adjust. But I have faith that he will, because I've seen him do that, at different times in his career. He is adjusted when need be. Hopefully, coming out of the lineup last night, he knows what's going on. He knows his own stats. I'd still put more faith in Bichette turning that around and likely happening tonight and moving back into a better direction. Confirmed tonight, Dalton Varsho should no longer be guaranteed an everyday spot in the lineup.
Ooh, that's harsh, but I'm going to confirm it. There's no guarantees. Mm-hmm. It's like Steve Phillips said, man. This isn't about feelings. This isn't about making him feel good about himself. This is about getting guys to play better. And whether that's sitting Varsho down for a stretch, look, I'm not sitting him down tonight because he just came through with a big
absolutely. He had a big one
moment
last night. He had a big one last night for sure.
And that was a nice sign that, hey, maybe here's a guy, he's done it before. He's had a tough start during his career in Toronto after a big trade where you send over your best prospect. There's a lot of pressure on him to perform. Maybe that is the moment against the Dodgers last night in Chavez Ravine where he comes through with a big hit. They get the 11th inning win, and it's much sunnier from here on out for Dalton Varsho. But I can still confirm that it's not about guarantees. Like, you can't be guaranteeing people spots. Just like you were talking about, is it time for George Springer to come out of the leadoff spot? Yeah, there's no guarantees that you're the leadoff hitter, even though you love being the leadoff hitter and you identify as the leadoff hitter. This is about results, and they got to get some.
Yep. Listen, Varsho's stats speak for themselves. Last night, notwithstanding, couple hits and the big one in the 11th, that's massive. His defensive metrics are off the charts. Last night, he made a massive base running blunder. Yeah. Massive blunder.
Unfortunate.
But generally speaking, he can wreak havoc on the base. I think that was a sign of him trying to do too much. That's a sign of him on his toes. I'm going to deny this because of what we even said about Springer, where Springer not guaranteed to be batting leadoff, but he's not coming out of the lineup, right?
Yeah.
Like, we're talking about pushing George back. And as much as Varsho has been a black hole at the plate for a long, long stretches this season, there isn't a replacement that's screaming at me right now.
That's true.
Right? Like, that's another thing that needs to be considered here is if he's coming out,
who's going in?
Who's going in? Is it going to be much better? Defensively, will it be a complete drop-off, a semi-drop-off? It's certainly going to be a drop-off of some capacity. So I'm not quite there yet. And also, like you've been saying all afternoon, Dave, and it's a very sound point, they know the team that they need to have hitting on all cylinders to be a true World Series contender. Mm-hmm. They've probably known that since February, since March.
Since they put it together,
They put it together. In an ideal world, this guy's doing this, that guy's doing that, and everything's going to come together. Dalton Varsho clearly is a part of that, right? They clearly believe in what he can bring in left field, what he can bring on the bases. He is a guy that can hit for power. He's done it before. Mm-hmm. And I think they realize they got to have it. And it's not so much you got to have it today. You probably got to have it on October 1st if you're going to get there. And I'm not ready to completely move on from Varsho's spot in the everyday lineup quite yet. Could be a different story in a month. Could be post-deadline. Mm-hmm. All right, we'll get to some more confirm or denies a little bit later this afternoon. And confirm or deny is always brought to you by Don Valley North Lexus. Right now, lease the 2024 NX 250 signature package from just $298 biweekly for 24 months. Visit Don Valley North Lexus for all of the details. DonValleyNorthLexus.com for all of the details. Had a running back actually sign and avoid the franchise tag today in the NFL. Trey Wingo will join us in about 20 minutes on that. Andrew Raycroft, former Leaf, coming up as well on the retirement of Patrice Bergeron. What does that do for the East? What does it do for the whole NHL in terms of what Bergeron represented, among some other stories around the NHL? That more still to come. OverDrive continues, TSN 1050 and on the TSN app. All right, Trey Wingo coming up in about 15 minutes. Saquon Barkley was franchise tagged, and we thought, okay, that's going to be an issue. And then all of a sudden he works out a deal, but it's a one-year deal.
Yeah.
And he can get a little bit more money. It's incentive-based. I think he was going to end up with like $10 million on the nose, I believe, franchise tag. Mm-hmm. Now he can get up to $11 million and maybe up to $13, I believe, if he hits certain numbers. Mm-hmm. And I guess that's going to make him happier, and I guess it gets him into camp, and it certainly makes the Giants happy. Why wouldn't it?
Well, it pushes a big problem down the road, right?
Right, exactly. But he can still be franchise tagged again next year.
Right.
And this time next year, I don't think the running back position is going to have some big redemption. It just doesn't seem like it's going to happen. They're not going to get money anymore, relatively speaking, and compared to where it used to be.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, it's all relative, of course, but you're right. In terms of the esteem of the running back, I was looking back, it's like when I was a kid, 30, 40 years ago, like Herschel Walker was the highest paid football player on the planet as a running back, right? There was a big coup when Donald Trump and the USFL stole him from the NFL, right? And they paid him all that money, and running backs were prized as guys you could build your franchise around. Wasn't that long ago, right? A generation and a bit ago. And now they're just like disposable players to a certain extent, right?
Yeah.
And even the best ones like Saquon Barkley, teams just refuse to put big money behind.
Well, it was Mike Ditka, Ricky Williams. They traded their whole draft
Ricky
to
Williams,
take a running back. Their whole draft to take Ricky, and then said, all right, see you later. We're out of here.
It didn't work out.
And obviously an outrageous decision, but now the idea of taking a running back anywhere close to the top 5. The last time we saw that, I think, was Saquon Barkley, second overall.
Game's changed, man.
Game has changed. And you look at the statistics. I was listening to the guys on the morning show today, Korolnik and Kaz, breaking it down. And Kaz was making great points about Super Bowl winning teams. They don't have monster running backs.
Yeah.
They have guys who run for 600 yards, 700 yards. It's usually a platoon backfield. And it's about the quarterback. It's about the wideouts, the offensive line, the key defensive positions, coaching, and then getting the running back cooking when you need to.
Yeah.
Right? Give me 2 or 3 yards. I don't need 50 out of you. Just give me 2 or 3 when I really need it.
That's all you need, and you can get a lot of guys to do that.
That's what it seems to be happening league-wide in the NFL. Final hour coming up on TSN2, and, of course, right here on TSN Radio. Bryan Hayes, Dave Feschuk, OverDrive continues. Hour 3 next.